You could just sit next to me for like 30 minutes and you will be able to just create a campaign on Facebook. It's that easy. But what happens when shit hit the fan, in my opinion and my prediction on this, it's gonna be a bloodbath. Everybody's gonna fail. You have a woman who is kind of in the snow and her baby is freezing to death. I mean, like, this is terrible. This is terrible, but it works because it creates drama. Is it immoral? Absolutely no. Is it gonna be banned from the platforms? No, because they make also money. If you have a shitty game, you can do whatever on the UA side, it's just not gonna work. I mean, welcome to the gaming industry. It's never gonna be easy, and it's gonna be harder from now on all the time.
Matej, how are you doing?
All good. Thank you very much for having me. It's nice.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where do you come from?
Matej Lančarič. I'm in the industry for 11 years. I started my career here in Slovakia, where I'm based at Pistol Federation, which is the biggest game dev company here. I took their games from Facebook Canvas to mobile, and then after 5 years, I left the company, joined one marketing agency here in Slovakia, and then said to myself, life is short, let's try something else. And since then, I'm kind of consulting and doing UA with small to mid-sized companies, a little bit with big corporations as well. I have my own team of 10 motion designers, the creative team, and I love it.
Awesome.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's great.
Fantastic. Okay, so I want to start off like I often start off. The games industry is pretty wild right now. As you look out there at the state of game dev, you probably have an interesting perspective on this, both being based in Slovakia and also being primarily in that sort of mobile UA environment. Like, what are you seeing? What do you think about where games are at today?
Come on, like every year is the same thing. Everybody is crying. It's like, oh, it's tough. We need to survive to 25. And now 25 is there. It's like, oh, everybody's crying again. It's February. I mean, welcome to the gaming industry. It's never gonna be easy, and it's gonna be harder from now on all the time. I mean, it's how it is. That's how it is. The landscape, especially on UA, changed quite a lot, and also thanks to the iOS changes and everything. And Google is preparing not the same thing, but very similar thing with privacy, and it's gonna change again. So people are gonna cry again, and we are gonna adapt again, as everybody else. The iOS privacy changes help smaller developers a little bit, because I mean there was a big kind of trend of hyper casual games. They had to shift to hybrid casual game, which is also kind of I don't know if I can say helping the industry, but it's opening up a different direction that it wasn't there before. So now the hybrid casual games are kind of trending already for some time, but still they're borrowing the best from both the worlds on the hyper casual side from the marketing perspective, because those games had really low CPIs, and thanks to that the whole CPI versus LTV equation could work. And now the hybrid casual games are borrowing that part of the equation, but they're borrowing the part of the equation of the casual game, the LTV side. So it can very interesting times that we are living at the moment. And again, as I said before, I love it. I was always very positive about the games and the UA, and when people are talking about the gaming industry is dead, the mobile UA is dead, it's not that at all. So, yeah.
Got it. Now, you said as part of that, it's gotten harder and it's going to continue to get harder, and that's just the reality of games.
Yeah.
What you mentioned iOS changes and Google potentially making some changes to privacy policies, things like that. Is there anything else that you see out there that's also driving that? Like, look, this is hard and it's going to keep getting harder. That's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, well, the times where we had Facebook as the one channel on the UA side, then Google came into the mix, which is two bigger channels, and that was basically it, which is kind of 7, 8, 9 years ago. It's not that landscape anymore. So now instead of running 1 or 2 channels, you're running 10. And that's the very big, not a very big problem, but that's the difficult part, because you need to now manage more channels. You need to know how those channels work. I'm pretty sure you are hearing about the Uplavin and their success. So it's you need to manage that, and it is working completely differently than the Facebook and TikTok and Google. So you need to know how these work to make your game successful, and how to grow successfully as well.
Got it. Okay.
And
Okay. So there's both changes in privacy policy. There's also the proliferation of channels that people are having to interact with, and that means you got to stay on top of a lot more things as you do this. Okay. All right.
And there's also one important thing, which is the creative part, and that's getting also a little bit. I can't say sophisticated, but kind of a little bit more complex, because back in the days where you could just run creatives in the gameplay creatives, yeah, you don't see those that often these days.
What do you mean by that? Talk to me, like what you said you could
Oh yeah.
run the gameplay creatives. You don't see that as much.
So think about this. Like, a few years ago, you just put a video out there which is showcasing your gameplay, and people are like, "Oh, yeah, this looks good. Let's play." You do this now, let's say in a match 3 game or a 4x strategy game, and you will be your cost per install will be maybe $80, which is quite a lot of money for one player. And now the creative kind of helps to decrease this number. On the other hand, that kind of the approach to creatives, they're not showcasing the gameplay. At the best, I call it altered gameplay. So you basically take your assets from your game, and then you build scenes that are not really in the game, but actually connected to the game. But now you have Whiteout Survival, you have Dark War, Last War, you have all these different strategy games that are using game mechanics from different genres in their creatives, because they want to decrease the CPI so much. So it kind of, you get majority of the players for low CPI, so that the CPI versus LTV equation works afterwards. That's why the creative approach makes it very difficult. And then you see all the fake ad, misleading ad, which is kind of partially true what I just said. But then you have, yeah.
So like one, we're gonna have to talk about terms just to make sure everybody's
Yeah,
on the same
of
page.
course.
But so you mentioned CPI, cost per install, LTV, lifetime value.
Yes.
We'll probably define those later in this for people who that they're somewhat intuitive, but there's probably nuance there. When I hear you talk about that, it's funny. The two games that come to mind. One is Raid Shadow Legends, where I feel like they do the altered thing, where there's like, hey, these are game assets, but maybe put in a slightly different environment, or more like what you'd almost see, frankly, something like a PC game doing. Like League of Legends has their sort of cinematic trailers. They're characters from the game. They're not even game assets. They're completely done cinematically, but then they kind of run through and fight each other, and it's like, this is League of Legends. Even though if you were to play League of Legends, it's like that's not quite the experience that you have. Certainly not the camera angle, at least. And then you have something like Hero Wars, which I think in the West at least is the one that's famous for actually creating like a sort of what looks like an entertaining mini puzzle, and then you're like, oh, I want to play this game, and then you get in and it's like it's nothing at all
So
like anything that you saw.
yeah. So there are Reddit or subreddits around Hero Wars, where people are just coming and saying like, "Hey, where are the puzzle games? Where are the puzzle levels? I'm playing this for 3 years and I'm waiting for new puzzles to appear again in the game again." Well, guess what? Well, they won't. And this is the part of that illusion that you showcase this in the creative, and then people come and download the game expecting this is gonna be the game. I'm actually going to post one interesting post about the Hero Wars, because I wrote an article about them being an OG of fake ads,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
they went from this evolution of showcasing the actual gameplay, CGI trailers, to using the pull the pin mechanics that were shown in play almost all the players game. So you
Yeah.
have a
Yep.
puzzle which you are pulling the pins from lava or whatever else.
Yep.
Then they went from there, and as soon as they've done that, their revenue increased dramatically. It went by 10x. Then they went from that to these towers and numbers. So you were attacking from left to right in different towers, and then based on the numbers, you won or you were defeated. And then they transformed that to what you just mentioned, and now they are using the gates mechanics from last war and other forex games. And I was just checking the credits today. It's all over the place, because these days you need to find, you're not kind of trying to identify the personas like in the marketing, like, oh well, we need to go for this person, which is, I don't know, Ben from US, and you are a sports fan and whatever else, you love food and whatever. Now you kind of try to identify the game mechanics that works and that can you translate to your game basically, and in this case drive down the CPIs. So therefore I was saying this is quite difficult now, because it's not really the classic marketing from the way back before.
Yeah. Well, I remember watching, I can't remember, I'm sure there's more than one of these, but someone talking about, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go make a game studio where I make the game that is actually the ads for the other games that are not actually in the games, because it seems like people want that, because those ads survive and people keep clicking on them. And this, honestly, like, we'll dive into this later since it's come up of what do you do with that? Like from a morality perspective of like the bait and switch and all this, because to your point around revenue growth, I mean, it works. I got my CPI down. So, I guess from there, let's transition in, and we can maybe go into this as like.
No, we can go. Yeah, it's very interesting and very important to talk about this, because it's going into the area not only fake ads, but usually like that's the start, and then they transition to anything sexist and really
Yeah.
in that.
What was
that's terrible.
What was the old Forex game? Was it Evo or something? There was some. There was one like it was I think it is the OG of this, where it was just like the game, like there'd be an ad and there would be an attractive cartoon woman in the ad.
Yeah.
And it was like and the game had nothing to do with any of that.
Yeah. And you have then freezing families. Basically, you have a woman who is kind of in the snow and her baby is freezing to death. I mean, like, this is terrible. This is terrible, but it works because it creates drama, it shows tension, and decreases the CPIs. And people will use it because it helps to make revenue. Is it immoral? Absolutely no. Is it gonna be banned from the platforms? No, because they make also money. So
yeah,
it is really,
yeah.
I mean, but this is it's tough. And I just had this post last week on my LinkedIn, because I've seen few games coming from China where they take the Screwgem puzzle game, which is now cloned by millions of companies. They're taking the makeover, so you basically a project makeover that Apple haven't just sold. It's a puzzle game where you kind of a female character and you just do makeover, makeup, hair, and different things. But it's so gross now. It's just you're doing like pimples, it's hairy legs, and all of these different stuff, the body shaming, and it's in those creatives. And some people are just defending this, like, it works because people, like this stuff. It's 75 million views when you just look at someone just crashing pimples. It's like, people like to watch this. Does it mean we need to really put this into the creatives? No. So these are, it's like very different, different angles how you can approach this. So yeah, it's an interesting time when we are living in.
They had they've had some real good ones lately, because they've started to go into like poking at game dev, and it's hilarious because they're actually pretty insightful. But they they had one a while ago, and it was girls dancing on TikTok. And it was like, hey, I don't want to see all the girls dancing on TikTok. And there's like someone talking to TikTok, and the TikTok is like, yeah, well, I mean, I think you do. And he's like, no, I don't. And he's like, oh yeah, well, like, look at this. And he's like, wait, what? Why'd you just show me girls? I just said I didn't want to see that. And he's like, yeah, but you looked at it for like 0.3 of a second longer than the other video. And he's like, well, I mean, it's girls but like, I don't want to watch that. That's not what I'm here for. And he's like, are you sure? Here, let's bring in some more. And it was just this, there's a weird thing, which is, well, it works. And does that justify? And it's interesting because there's a moral philosophy there that's something like the ends justify the means, which is actually a very poor holistic moral philosophy, in my opinion. You get a lot of really bad things when you run that to its logical conclusion. Okay, so I want to dive into some of the questions we have because look, I'm my background way back is like the military, and then I went into game production, and I spent a bunch of time at Riot working on League of Legends and Valorant and platforms and all this different stuff. Mostly PC, messed a little bit with mobile and platforms, doing some cross-platform things. And since then, I've been working with companies all over the place. And I'll be honest, when I was at Riot, we didn't have to talk about user acquisition. The game was huge. It was viral. Like we eventually did run ads, but I mean, for a lot of the time I was there, it was like, dude, we're very proud of the fact that we don't have to run ads. People tell their friends, more people play, more people play, more people play. Like, we ran more ads for, I think, esports than we did for the game, and things like that when that first started becoming a thing. So, I didn't have a great picture of like what user acquisition was. So let's start there. I've become a little bit more familiar, but nowhere near as familiar as you. Matej, define user acquisition for us.
I mean, everything you just mentioned is some kind of or some form of user acquisition because the word of mouth, word of mouth is kind of part of the UA, but it's not paid. And these days in mobile, it's not 2011, 12 anymore, where you had Thinkersoft and Hill Climb Racing, where they just launched the game, or Subway Surfers, they launched the game, and suddenly you are getting hundreds of thousands people per day installing your game.
Mm-hmm.
You launch your game and nobody knows about it, so you need to do some activities and work on some activities to actually bring the players into the game. And by the user acquisition, it's just, you're bringing your players into the game with different channels, processes, activities. There's App Store optimization, which kind of helps with how your users are kind of uncover your game on the store. There are also some interesting practices and in there, but I'm doing the paid user acquisition, which, I mean, I can't say I love the most, but I love the most because you can control what you are getting, what players you are getting, which channels you are running. So basically, user acquisition is simply saying, like, trying to convince people to install your game.
Mm-hmm. So there's then a split, but like I would say that League of Legends, I'd almost describe it as like it's organic user acquisition. It was almost pure organic,
exactly.
Where you're talking about like paid or targeted or something like that, where it's like we're going. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, cool.
Exactly.
All right. Now, because we already ran into a couple of them, I want to talk about some of the big acronyms that are in the space. So, CPI, LTV, I don't know if you talk about, like, you talk about ROAS.
ROAS, of course.
Yeah.
ROAS all the time.
So walk through, like, what are the big few that if someone was unfamiliar with UA, didn't know any of these acronyms, maybe they've seen them occasionally on a LinkedIn post or whatever, just run through like, hey, these are the big ones that you'll tend to see when you're thinking about user acquisition.
Yeah, CPI, the cost per install, obviously, which is important. LTV, your lifetime value. You mentioned that ROAS is return on ad spend, for how much money you spend and then how much money you get back. That is usually tied to certain time frame. Also, LTV is tied to certain time frame. We are usually talking about ROAS day 1, or ROAS on day 3, ROAS on day 7. Because the LTV and the lifetime value, and it's a curve which should increase over time. If it's not increasing over time, you have a problem.
Right. Yeah.
Or I have a problem and I'm targeting wrong users. Then we have the IPM, which is install per mile. That means number of installs per 1,000 impressions. This
Okay.
this is kind of a little bit more effective way how to measure how your creatives are efficient. It kind of came up into the UA space when the hyper casual games were run heavily, because then like these games had 440 IPM, which means 40 installs in 1,000 impressions. For comparison, match-free games IPM is 3 or 4.
Right. Okay.
So it's like different genre, different IPM, so instance per 1,000 impressions. Then we have the CTRs, which is the click-through rate, how many people click on your ad, and then it connected to the conversion rate or click to install, so how many people clicked and then eventually installed the game. And then we have the store conversions, which is what I just mentioned. It can be from the paid, so how many users saw your ad, clicked on the ad, and then installed the ad in the store, or installed the game in the store. And then we have organic conversions, so basically how many people saw your icon or your screenshot or something in the store, and then eventually installed the game from the store, or from seeing the game asset in the store. What else do we have? Oh well, then we have the AEO or VO, which is up event optimization, which I usually use, and it's a campaign type. It's a campaign type because we have campaigns which you can target for cost per install, so means lowest cost possible. But it doesn't really bring the best audience anymore. You have cheap CPI or like very low CPIs, but the quality is terrible as well. Then Facebook
And
came up with
when you say quality is terrible, there you mean you have low CPI, so there's a low cost per user that installs, but quality being terrible means that hey, there's not much value that's coming back from those, like low LTV basically,
exactly,
or over
low
some low retention, low LTV, something like
retention.
that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So so Facebook came up with these up event optimized campaigns where you can basically target or use certain events from the game in the campaign optimization. So let's say I want to get people that finish the tutorial. So you use that event in the campaign. So that's why it up event optimization. But then it wasn't enough because people are using this event, but also purchase event, which was great because it was bringing payers. But then someone thought, oh, well, I know that someone from Facebook, he said, let's just focus not on the number of events, but actually the value that players are bringing into your game, which then became value optimization and value optimized campaigns, which is now run at the best possible optimization almost all the channels, because it's bringing it, if in simple terms, whales. Everybody wants whales.
Right. Okay. Define whales for me around the user acquisition framework. Like what is yeah.
Well, whale for me is anyone who spends more than, let's say, $200 or $500. That for me a whale. It kind of depends obviously on the different genre and the game you have, but yeah, generally anything about 200 or 500 can be whale.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's some of the terms that we'll probably keep hitting on.
We could be here.
Oh, I know. Well, yeah.
So long. Don't worry. Yeah.
Well, so if you were to simplify it down and say, hey, this is somebody who's totally new to user acquisition. They know nothing about user acquisition. Their plan was something like, I'll build the game, I'll put it on Steam, or I'll put it on the App Store or whatever, and I just hope people will play it and like it, and it'll go viral, and it'll become like, the classic example of this that came to mind for me in the mobile world. You probably have a better one, but like I remember Flappy Birds, the guy that released, like, that guy did no marketing. He didn't even want the game to be successful. He was distressed and stressed out that it was successful, but like, talk about a viral hit, probably wouldn't happen today. Not in the same way, at least.
Not in the same way. Yeah, not in the same way.
So here, he had this sort of viral thing, but imagine you were like, I'm hoping to have a Flappy Bird style hit, and you were going like, hey, but probably not a good plan. here's the most important one of these things that I would ask you to start measuring. What would you tell people to focus on?
Well, they should be measuring the onboarding. Nothing actually with the UA yet.
Okay.
Because if they have a problem in the onboarding or somewhere early in the funnel, like why would you run UA and throw money out of the window?
And funnel is, hey, we let's say we put something out there. Somehow somebody sees our thing. How many people click it? How many people when they click it go to the next click that they would need to get to? How many people go from that point to like and at some point that means an installed product, but like basically measuring the different, like how many people do you lose at each place of the funnel. And so for onboarding, that's what you're talking about.
I'm talking about onboarding in the game actually. So you
Okay.
install the game somehow, but then what happens afterward? How many players you lose in the different steps in the tutorial, and then what after? Like, are they playing still after day 7? Are they playing after day 30? Because that's important. If they are not, and you start spending, you might lose a lot of players and also a lot of money at that point.
Right.
That's very very important.
Okay, so you're talking about then like I install the game.
Yeah.
Do I click on it? If I click on it, do I start the tutorial? If I start the tutorial, how far do I get? And at what point?
Exactly.
And fix that. Like fix that first.
Exactly. Yeah, because
Okay.
look, the LTV always of the game and the retention like dictates the spend on the UA side. Because people ask like, oh well, look, so we have, oh well, we have money. We don't know what kind of budget we should have. Like, okay, fine, good. I can figure that out. But when do you want to see the money back? Oh well, you tell us. Like, well, what do you mean? I tell like we need to look at together. Like, how does your LTV curve look like, and how does your retention curve look like? So if you want to see your invested money back in 2 years, but players, well, there's basically 0 players after 90 days, you can't really aim for 2 years. It's very simple like that. Oh, okay, but those games in our genre are aiming for 2 years. Yeah, of course, but you don't know their numbers, and they like certain genres have certain LTV curves because that's how it works. If you want to run a match-3 game, and you kind of have to aim to get the money back in 2 years because the CPIs are really high, and you can't really squeeze that much money from the players in the first year. It needs some time, and usually in match-3 games, when people start playing and they keep playing, they're very invested and they play for years. So that's why in the first year you might see 70% of ROAS coming back, and then the next 30% it's gonna come in the year 2, for example. So, and this is something that everybody needs to understand first before they start spending even some money. And then obviously before starting spending money, you need to have the tracking in place, and you need to test it a little bit from like the small campaigns just to see if your data is healthy, and you need to do the data health check on account channels.
Got it. So the first thing you would do, like your first step, you go to that person who's like, I thought I was just going to put it on the app store and it was going to be great. Is, hey, let's start actually like making sure we have good telemetry around your onboarding funnel, and then we can start thinking about what an ad spend would look like. But we need to solve those things first. I think it's also interesting to note, and again, it makes tons of sense. It's just something that, again, hadn't popped into my head around the idea of, oh, different genres will have different LTV curves and different time frames to basically hitting, LTV over CPI, or, again, the ROAS, the return on ad spend percentages. So sometimes you make a game going, I expect the CPI to be high. That's okay. This game is almost like a long-term investment vehicle versus another game, which is very much like, this game might be dead in 3 months, but I might have made 200 million in that time.
Which can happen.
And by the way, like people are like, oh, that must be predatory. I'm like, no, I mean, a lot of huge console games have huge spikes of revenue at the start and then just like declines to almost nothing. And it's like, but that's fine. It paid for the game. We made some extra money. No big deal. Like
Exactly.
almost any
That's
single
how
player
it
game.
works.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What are the myths? What are the myths around getting people to play your game?
Well, I think the biggest myth was, and I was even talking about it. It was a trend more than myth. And if you start you have to start your UA on Facebook. I mean, when there wasn't anything else, then that was the case. But then, like, if it doesn't work on Facebook, it won't work elsewhere, which is definitely myth.
Okay.
Even now, you need to have at least like 2 or 3 channels just to benchmark the numbers against each other. Because if it doesn't work on Facebook, it doesn't really mean it won't work on Google to a certain extent, or to an uploading or TikTok. And I was living that myth and saying, oh, I need to hit 1 million spend a month, and then I can start adding new channels.
Mm.
Which now it's absolutely not true.
Okay,
But
got it.
that was that's definitely the biggest one.
What else? What other myths what else when you go to
Oh, I
a
know, I know,
a client like
I know.
someone making a game, what are the myths that they have or the assumptions that they have? Like they're like, "Oh, this is obviously how it works." And you're like, that's actually not how it works."
Yeah, well, if UA will save my game, if you have a shitty game, UA won't work. I mean,
Mhm.
it will work to a certain extent, but it won't save it, because if it is really bad, you can throw money at the problem, but this is what not gonna solve it. People think they can. Well, the problem was always you have a mediocre game, and with marketing you can make it quite good. At least it looks good and it makes money. If you have a shitty game, you can do whatever on the UA side, it's just not gonna work. And little people always think that the expectations are quite high. Like, look, you are the expert, and now we're just gonna do it, and we're just gonna make it. It's gonna be great. It's like, guys, let's see. I don't think, but we can try. We need data, and I saw your previous campaigns didn't look that great, but it can be various reasons. I don't want to shit on anyone. Let's try. And then we try and it looks bad. Like, oh, we are so disappointed. We thought you're an expert. Like, guys, oh, go on. Seriously? And this is just, yeah, this is happening. And this is happening for that. So that's like
Got it.
those assumptions are quite
Right.
there. Yeah.
The UA can save no matter what I
Yeah. No
well,
matter what I do, yeah,
some of
yeah.
that too probably comes from a there's a thing I talk about a lot, the idea of accepting reality. And it's hard to do, and we don't like to do it because it's stressful sometimes to accept reality. And so if I've told myself for a long time that we're making a great game and it's really great and it's going to be awesome, then when something goes wrong, I have to go like, well, it can't be the great game. We obviously made a great game, so it's got to be like the UA. We could just get the right person instead of confronting the potential reality that you're probably getting actually some feedback around, which is like that the game's not up to snuff. And so, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's happening, and that you always connected. Then I have the red flag, which is like, oh well, we worked with 3 other agencies and it didn't work, and they were terrible. Like, okay, that's the first
yeah,
red flag.
yeah,
That's the
yes.
first red flag.
We're coming to
Okay.
you. No one else could help us. Yes.
Uh,
No, I'll be honest. I'll expose something about myself because I get companies that want to help me do because I do consulting and I sell training and things like that, and they're like, oh, we'll help you do that. And there's a part of me that goes, you might be able to help me, but I don't know if what I have is good enough to want to pay you money to scale it because if it's not good enough and it's hard for me to get data around this, I'm just going to be wasting a lot of money and I'll probably blame you for it when in fact it may just be that like the product isn't good. So, okay. All right. Next question. And again, this is coming from the game dev side of it. So this is a very, very, loaded, aggressive question, but I'm just gonna throw it out there.
love.
Isn't UA just a bunch of soulless number crunching to trick players into playing games?
Absolutely, yes. Well,
We
just the
got
thing.
him. No, okay. So
Yeah,
talk
that's the
talk
thing.
more. Talk more.
Yeah. It's like it is and it isn't. It's it's numbers, and the some companies will do whatever it takes to get the players in and make money. And this is just the hard reality. That's it.
Yeah.
We talked about the fake ads, the sexist ads, and everything. This is just like it's a part of it, of course. The other part is you're actually, I mean, if you work on the different creative side, and you mentioned Raid Shadow Legends. If you look at those creatives, they are just amazing and beautiful. Like that's a piece of art, and people want to work on this, and it's also quite hard to make everything right, and it's just like changing it. Everything is changing so rapidly. I mean, campaigns like you could just sit next to me for like 30 minutes and you will be able to just create a campaign on Facebook. It's that easy. Everything is automated. But what happens when shit hit the fan? That where like the UA kind of experts come in and try to solve different problems.
Mhm.
So yeah, I still think it's beautiful. I
Yeah.
kind of love
Yeah.
it because it's more about it's absolutely numbers oriented. But nowadays it's coming way more towards the actual creative and the UA managers. Like when I started, I was really like digging deep in the Excel sheets. I still do it, but you can now have dashboards and AI automations and all of like so that part is kind of figured. But now as the UA manager, you're kind of almost telling a story like how to tell your game to wide audience, and you need to be able to write script. You need to be able to actually film some of the creatives because all the user generated content creatives where influencers are talking into their cameras. Or try it out. It's not that easy actually. It's not that easy to
Yeah.
film yourself and say something which eventually makes players to install the game.
Yeah.
So this part of that equation is it's coming there. So yeah, always numbers, yes, but now it's kind of going a little bit closer to the creativity and that part of the equation.
Yeah. What I think too, it's like we have to recognize we're making products. We got to sell them. It's
That's the thing. People still forget like this is a business. It's gaming business. You need to make money. Unfortunately, you can't pay your lunch with the fact that your players like the game.
hmm
You come to the restaurant and say, "I look, well, here's the bill, and here's 50% day one retention."
right.
Because you can't pay with that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. So you mentioned in there, I kind of want to go down a little tangent. Um, Sometime like there's in 30 minutes you could help me set up a simple Facebook campaign. Cool. And it'd probably be like way better than what I'd get, and I'd be like, oh wow, I kind of know a little bit more about how to set up Facebook. But you said sometimes you run into problems. That's where you bring the experts in. What are the problems that you tend to see where it's like, hey, you should bring me in as an expert, or you should find other experts? Like what when you say that, can you give me just a couple examples of like, hey, this problem happened. What is that?
yeah, so the problem happens when CPIs increase dramatically. What now? How to test creatives? People don't know that. Do I just throw them into the campaigns, or what I do with them?
And sorry, when you say creatives, creative means
Be-
like it's a video or it's an image or something.
It's a video, it's an image, and it's a playable as well. So it's a small snippet of the game, which is HTML5. You can play short, kind of the amount of time kind of game that you're getting into, which is now also semi true because all the fake ads are coming into the playable as well. But anyway, so there are like three different types: banners, videos, and playables.
Okay.
So those, and then also there's the decision making and a problem like when do I start? Like I mentioned, when do I start a new channel? Is it now? Is it when is it? Are these numbers that I'm looking at good or bad? I have no idea. I've never seen other numbers. should I aim for last 20%, or is it good that I have 10%? Well, depends on the LTV curve. So you have all these questions and problems, and then like you said, I just worked on the game. It's the best game ever, and you put it out there, and the numbers look shit. Like, okay,
Yeah.
why? Why is it me? Is it because we didn't really do a good job on the creative, well, on the campaign side? Like, all of these different things. I'm soft launching a game. What does it mean? Is it gonna be like me just 1 month testing stuff, or is it me actually working on the game in a soft launch for 6 months in a limited amount of countries and trying to improve the numbers and with each build? And when I'm satisfied with that, like, launch, how does that launch strategy look like? It's like all of these different things and bits and pieces.
Got it. Okay. Hey, leaders and game devs, if you love what we do here at Building Better Games, imagine what we could create with your support. By joining our Patreon, you help us bring deeper insights, develop better training, and host more expert discussions to level up your leadership and game development skills. Plus, as a patron, you're going to get exclusive behind-the-scenes content, early access to episodes, and a chance to ask your burning questions directly to us. Join now and help us build better games together. So this one, I hope this isn't too much of an overlap with what we just hit, but what do people tend to forget when thinking about UA?
Well, they tend to forget about the data and the data health. It's always a problem. I worked with, if I say like 9 out of 10 games where I worked with, they had a problem with data. It's like either it doesn't match what you see in Facebook, it doesn't match with what you see in the App Store, it doesn't match with what you see in internal data, and then you spend against something, or you spend against let's say some prediction, and then after a year of running the numbers and campaigns, you find out, oh, wait a second, the LTV prediction is wrong. It's way worse than what we thought. Then suddenly like, oh shit, now what? So then you need to recalculate. So all of these, you put a new build live, then suddenly event measurement doesn't work, and all of these are like, it's fine, don't worry about it. So all of this, it's overlooked so much. It's insane, and that's like, you have every time you run a campaign. I mean, of course, if you have a big game, it shouldn't happen, but sometimes it happens.
It does, yeah.
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 Okay. I launched 50 games. Like half of that had a problem with servers when they launched. So we had the biggest featuring out there a couple of years ago. I launched all the campaigns, and usually the featuring spikes on Saturday. So I said campaign on Wednesday, featuring starts on Thursday, so the weekend is great. Let's go. We pushed money into the campaigns, and then boom, on Saturday, black screen when people install a game for a minute.
Wow.
So, and that happened twice in the same company, twice. It's like, guys, seriously. So like all these things, it's insane. It's like, I can't imagine how much money we wasted thanks to this.
Yeah. So, and that's just like you said, server capacity, technical hurdles, like these sort of
technical hurdles.
What's the most counterintuitive lesson you've learned as someone who tries to help devs find players? Like, what's the thing that you kind of didn't expect to be true, or that no one really believes when you tell them, or something like that? So it's just like it runs against our intuition.
I think what ran, and I had these conversations actually today, and the recent creative trends, which are super counterintuitive. There is a trend which is, I call it the wall of text. So you have basically a video of a gameplay, and you have an text overlay which really covers basically the whole screen. And this is a trend. Exactly. Everybody looked at me like, what are you talking about? So it is it. And I took it from apps business, and I just ran it against like all the games I manage, and it worked really well. And people are like, how is this working? Why? And I was talking to some of the clients, and they're like, look, you know what I just realized I had to rewatch that video like 5 times until I finished the actual text. So people either pause that video, which is an interaction with the video, or they just spend a lot of screen time on that video, which helps with the auction and with the whole algorithm. So that's how it makes sense. And I was like, that's actually very true. That's actually very
Yeah.
true, because you need to pause or you need to interact with that video somehow. And this is like, when I was talking about this with one of my clients, they're like, how is this gonna work? It, it's really
And it
working.
works.
So yeah, it works really well. So
Huh.
these things, yeah.
That is so
I'm
weird.
yeah, they're so weird. Like the weirdest stuff is now happening on the creative side, all with the AI, with all these different trends. It's you look at the creative and it looks really bad. It looks terrible. And then like, why is this working? And then you realize, you know why? Because it looks native. It doesn't really look like an ad. So people think it's not an
Mm.
ad. It's a normal video, and then they believe it. We had this in 2015 when we launched one game at Pixel Federation, which is called Diggy's Adventure, and the game looked. I mean, it still looks old. The best creative was a screenshot from the game, which was the main character, and there was water, and then we actually animated the water, so it was just coming from the pipes, nothing else. The best creative was this, and like why? Because it was just like it looks like a random image, a random meme, and that's it. It was cute, looked really terrible quality. Nobody cares. The best creative. Now it happened. This is the same thing. So
Hmm. It's
yeah,
it's funny. There's a thing. I've said before that the only thing you need to be Nostradamus in game development is just to predict everything to fail, because you're going to be right most like the vast majority of the time, because most things fail.
yeah.
Um, and so the interesting thing to me is always trying to find, like, can you predict which one will work or won't? Because if you can, that's an incredibly valuable skill. But if you can't, then the best thing you can do is just do a lot of different things and see what works. And it's almost, it sounds like almost what you're talking about is like, hey, look, after the fact, we may be able to rationalize why this worked or not. But before, we tend not to have as strong an idea.
Yeah, I have these two tests that I started kind of working with in terms of the creatives. The one is I call it like boring test, and then the one is called so what test. So the boring test is you and your team is watching the creative, and then every time like you get bored, you raise a hand. So you're watching the creative, and then suddenly after 2 seconds, like a first hand, and like people are just raising hands, and then in like a 30-second video, in 12 seconds, everybody's like, "Oh, okay, I'm bored." If this happens, yeah, the creative is gonna suck. Absolutely.
Interesting.
Then there is the so what test. I'm watching a creative, and I'm just kind of trying to measure when I say so what during the video. And if it's in first 3 seconds, like it's done. Like that creative is not gonna work. And it's always kind of this. I think it helped me uncover some really potentially bad creatives, which I ran anyway just for the sake of testing, and
Yeah.
I was right. I was right. And now I'm kind of still like, if I see like the creative that we make from on our end, like, this is good, this is gonna work. I can feel it already because it passes the both tests. It's gonna work.
Got it.
But you need to kind of figure this out on the way.
Yeah. Well, and so it sounds like it is moving into a place where it's not, hey, just try everything and we can't really explain what works until after it does, when we can sort of post hoc rationalize. You're actually getting to that point where it's like, no, I'm starting to be able to predict. I can, if I,
It
if, yeah,
Yeah, kind of yes. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it actually helps
right.
to
Yeah.
just get rid of the trash basically.
Yeah.
Because I was also the UML is like, like, let's test it out. Obviously, I don't like this. Like, oh well, I don't like this. Oh, well, I don't care if you like it or I don't like it. It's like if it makes sense and it works in for this game and the genre, like let's test it out. But if you say I don't like it personally and let's not do it because I built this game almost like for me, that's not a very good approach. But
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now, this question is makes an assumption in the question. So I'm calling that out.
yeah.
How do you avoid over focusing on metrics, assuming that's possible, when doing UA?
Well, people get pretty critical about like different things, and especially metrics, and because there are goals so it for all the UA managers, and if you don't meet the goals, then well, you're not a good manager, right? I I was always a little bit different in this, because I get the feeling of when I see the campaigns and the LTV curves, and basically based on the goals and the numbers that the people see, they would already kill the campaign because oh my god, well look, it doesn't really meet the goal that we have. I was like, yeah, well now it's not, but yesterday it was, and the day before it was as well. Now like one day doesn't mean shit. So the good UA manager needs to have a certain gut feeling based on the campaigns that he or she ran before, because you were in this situation million times before. So numbers are great, and obviously you need to follow the goals and targets and the numbers. But there's always the feeling on or the idea or the idea of the back of your head, like, hey, let's just leave this a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
When I do it, it's usually going in the right direction. So you need to kind of develop this gut feeling as you go. So people and UA managers obviously, yeah, they overthink always. Like, oh well, this is my day 7 goal. What happens afterwards, I don't care because I met the goal. That's also like one part of the problem. So because that you can lose on, let's say, day 30 or day 180 afterwards.
Right.
So yeah.
All right. An interesting one for you. Are there environments where you shouldn't worry about UA or where it's just not worth the cost?
Uh, Environments, you mean different genres or
Just general.
platforms? I don't think, if you want players in your game, and it doesn't really work that like people just magically find your game out there, because there are thousands of games going live on a daily basis. How can you make sure? Well, you need to be obviously different. So, like you said, like viral hit, but it doesn't happen that often. And of course, you need to be very careful if there are the environments like match 3 or strategy game, and you made a decision, God knows why, to go into these red oceans and just build the game there. Yes, okay, fine. Well, you need to either be very creative and just think about something else, but you still need to run the UA just to get the players into your game. So I don't think there are just areas where it's not worth it. Honestly, it's worth it. It's just different for different genres.
Yeah. Yeah. So when League of Legends was like organically just growing like wildfire and they weren't doing any ad spend, you would have said like, hey, even in this environment and perhaps especially in this environment, you could accelerate this with some ads and that might be worthwhile.
That's one thing, because the organic install it's not never ending. It's just
Yep.
one day it can stop, and if it stops and you don't know what to do else, then you're fucked. So even if in these like organic hits, like the subway surfers and the hill climb racing from Fingersoft, even they started kind of using some like doing some kind of UA, because again it stops and you can't control. One day
Yeah.
you wake up and suddenly you have 0 players because, well, whatever reason. Now what? And you can't say like, oh well, but League of Legends will live forever. That may be true, but
Right.
what if
Yeah.
and if that happens, it's already too late. It's already too late. You need to be 2 steps. Well,
So
we like to say on our 2.5 Gamers podcast, you need to be 2.5 steps ahead of that.
and I think I hadn't thought about it from that angle of um all game like there's a you will hit saturation at some point through the channels that you have where basically your churn and your growth equalize and then perhaps even you start churning more than you're growing and now and if you haven't been using the time to date, even in like very small ways to like test and just like, oh, we won't spend a ton of money, we'll spend a little bit of money. Because I was thinking like, well, League would have been in danger had they run ads because they were already blowing out their servers so badly that if you added, double that number, you have the technical problem.
Yeah.
But uh, maybe you don't want to double it, but you just want to like test, just like start
Yeah.
experimenting, see what's
Yeah.
working,
Exactly.
have that kind of going in the background. Even if you're highly successful, think about that because you will hit that saturation point.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
okay.
And also, I had a few games where we had a discussion afterward. Like, look, they were saying, but we started running UA, but we are not growing. And like, where's the problem? Well, we started running UA, and you're flat, which means if you didn't start the UA, well, you would be decreasing and declining like the numbers because you don't know, right? Like, oh, wait a second, yeah, it might be true, yeah, like exactly. So can
Got it.
happen.
Okay. What are the top mistakes to avoid when bringing players to your game?
I talked about it from the data point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always the biggest problem. And also I touched that the payback period where you are trying to get the money back in 2 years, but the retention after data it's zero. It's always the interesting mistake. And then you kind of assume things will get better. But they won't. I mean, in terms of the UA, you need to make adjustments to campaigns, optimize campaigns. Do you use different channels? You need to work with those campaigns because people sometimes they think, oh well, I just started this campaign and it's gonna run forever. Well, that's not the case.
Right.
Or the biggest mistake is to assume if you increase the budget, then you will obviously you double the budget, you spend double the money, and you will get double the revenue. Oh, that's not really. It's not that's not how it works. Also, you increase the budget, you expect you will get more players. Well, you increase the budget, you sometimes you can even get less players because the CPI, the cost per install, increase dramatically because you increase the budget as well. So it's all these different small things that can go wrong, and then people are just surprised.
You talked about channels earlier, and now for some reason that just came up for me as you were describing all that, and I was thinking like, man, what channels and this may subdivide somehow across genre or something, but like if someone came to you, what do you want to know what channels to target?
I would start with anyway the classic mix that I usually use, which is Facebook, Google, and uploading to a certain extent, or TikTok, because that's easy to run or set up, or relatively easy to set up. It will give you some indication where the numbers are. Before kind of starting these channels, I would really want to see at least some numbers, whatever there was before, if they run any UA or like how the organic looks like. If there is no channels, then I would just need to come up with the strategy, which would be again very simple from the start. Facebook only, small budget, and then increase over time.
Mm-hmm. And then what are you said there's a lot of channels nowadays where people can go. Yeah, that's obviously a lot of different social media networks. Like if you've got a game and it's running pretty well, and they've brought you in, and maybe they're only running on those three. They're like, hey, we're on TikTok, Facebook, and Google. That's all we've got. We're actually getting good numbers. Where should we go? What
Yeah.
do you recommend?
Yeah, there's gonna be Uploving, there's gonna be Mintegral. I would take Unity as well, Iron Source, and now there's the big trend of rewarded UA channels, which is basically players play the game, they hit level 50, they get rewarded. So something like this with the gift card or whatever. So this is now blowing up quite heavily, and it's kind of complicated because it was a case before where it was called offer walls, but they was banned on iOS. So now all these channels are big on Android. Some of them are using some workarounds to be on iOS as well, but like that's a part of that UA channel mix, which is kind of big. And then we have Moloko as well, which is one other big channel that I use really and always forget about it. When people ask, like, what channels do you use? I keep forgetting about Moloko, and I use it all the time. But anyway, yeah, that's the sidetrack.
Yeah.
So there's like 50 different channels you can use.
If someone said like, hey, I want to keep it all focused on one channel, would you say no, you don't, or would you say okay, here's the right one for you?
Now I would say you can do it, but don't do it.
Don't do it, yeah.
At least because now we had a live Ask Me Anything session on our podcast 2 days ago, and this person asked, look, so we are running $1,500 per day budget, and we run only Unity. Is it enough, or what should I do? And I said, look, it's okay, but if I were you, I would take at least 20% of that budget and start running Facebook. And
See what
then
happens.
and see what happens, because if you run Unity, it also means you will see pretty good results on other channels as well, because Unity is not the best performing channel these days. So if you see good numbers there, you will see better numbers elsewhere.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's my kind of way of thinking here. So I said this, and then, as soon as you start running these channels, then I'm pretty sure you will see higher revenues, because better quality of higher quality users. And then you can actually start spending more eventually, and then open up Google, or just spend more on Facebook, and then add TikTok again. So it's really important, because I had this case where I had Facebook only, and we were in soft launch with this game, and we almost killed the game. And then before doing the look, like, you know what, like, let's try other channels, because we need benchmarks. And we started Google and Unity. And those two channels actually saved that game, because the numbers were looking pretty good and even better than Facebook. So then we actually global launched the game, and now it's sitting there. Obviously, it's not doing millions, but still pretty good for the company, which was a small company. So that's why I think you still need to run always at least two channels, so you can compare them against each other.
You mentioned that Facebook tends to be higher performing than Unity, let's say on average. But not a hard and fast rule. You just gave it a counterexample where like Facebook was doing worse and Unity did better.
Exactly. Yeah.
In general, and recognizing that this isn't a rule but a guideline, how do you stack rank available channels for UA for games?
Well, I have for iOS, there's Uplovin, TikTok, and Facebook. That's like on my top 3 list. Then for Google, it's Google, obviously. So Android, Google, then it's Facebook, and then it's Uplovin, I would say. So
Okay.
it's still kind of around this. Uplovin is now killing it on every genre and every level. But again, Switch still needs to think other channels. This is the big three. Big three.
Okay, cool. What comes after those? Like, what are the other ones that you're like, hey, be aware of these, or if those start doing well, maybe start taking some money, putting it towards these other ones.
Yeah, and then there's the Unity, Iron Source, and Integral, I would say, and Moloko, obviously. Again,
You always forget. Yeah.
again, forget about it. Jesus.
You remembered it today. It's great.
Yeah. So those, and then those four, and then basically the rest.
Okay. Okay, cool. My guess is that we will start seeing UA more and more and more in the PC console space. I mean, we already
Absolutely.
are because we are getting more. We are hitting those saturation points now. We're starting to hit the point where like it's not easy to be seen.
Exactly. Also, look, I think the where the clash happens is that the PC teams, they don't really understand like how the UA works.
Yeah.
My opinion, and B, like they hate it. Like they
Yeah.
hate
No. Again, it's a bunch of soulless
yeah.
number crunching, trying to trick people into playing the game. Right. That's
Exactly.
yeah.
So that's how they see it. So I totally understand. But
Yeah.
like, look, that's the job of the UA manager, to communicate all of this and put people on the same page. I mean, if I can't persuade my colleagues that this is actually a good thing, it's my problem.
Yeah. 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 So, question about the future. Where do you see the UA space going in the next 10 years? This is wild. This is opinion. Don't worry. I'm not going to call you in 10 years and be like, Matej, you were only 25% correct, but like tech, people,
This is so
players,
good.
like
This
what?
is so good.
Yeah.
I don't even know what's gonna happen in 10 days. Not in 10 years. Everything is changing so rapidly. Look, the future. I don't really talk about the predictions at all because you need to be able to say. Oh, I'm able to say predictions, but I don't really do it because I kind of hate it. People are abusing this a lot. But what's gonna happen is on the not only the UA side. I mean, I don't want to say AI because that's obvious. It's AI in my creative process. Just improved everything by 10x. Seriously, I can
Interesting.
work on the creatives. My team is using AI. They can produce way more creative thanks to that, and that's just gonna blow up the UA and the gaming industry. Where the gaming kind of is going is you and we see this partially in the strategy for genre that I mentioned. You need to have multiple cores in the game. So you borrow the Forex kind of game, then your onboarding is an hyper casual game, and then you have an idle game on top of it, or you have a simulation game on top of it. You need to be able to produce like three games within one game, because then you can use all of these different parts of that game for UA, for improving retention, and just keep players playing the game. This is where we are going.
Interesting. And so I want to make sure I'm hearing this. It's this idea of look,
Think about
if I have
yeah.
a
Think
single
about
if I have a single game,
yeah.
the reality is that people are going to move on from my game, and it's going to happen sooner than I'd like. I can try to get new players, that's fine, but at some point people are going to move on, and they probably don't come back. Um, in rare cases they do. I think Supercell has certainly made games that where you get some number of sort of re-engagements, recoveries, or whatever you want to call them, revivals. Um, but but for the most part, like once they stop, they stop. So can I build an experience that contains multiple distinct experiences within it, so that rather than them feeling like I want to have four games on my phone, they only need my one game on their phone, and they can just bounce between the different parts of it, and they can kind of chill out. Like, is that an accurate?
That's very close to what I said. Yes,
Okay.
because but that's one part of that equation, which is the LTV equation. But then the part of the UA comes from your one game, and people are calling your fake ads fake because they see the game, they expect something else, they come to the game and they're surprised. Oh, wait a second, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
But you have that what they see in the ads, and it's working really well in terms of the CPIs. You use that part as an onboarding. They play that hyper casual game first 20 minutes, and then you slowly throw them under the bus and then show them the Forex part, and they suddenly play Forex game they don't even know about it. That that's what I'm talking about.
Got it. Okay. Cool. All right. That runs the questions that I have. What didn't I ask you that I should have that leaders need to know about UA?
I think you covered basically my conversations with the companies I usually have on a weekly basis. So that's yeah, they always need to understand the part of the cash flow on the bank account also is important in terms of the UA, because they rarely do, because a few times what happened was in case we want to scale, and we were scaling, which means we increasing the budget heavily, and suddenly, because you don't see the money back immediately. You have 30 days payback period, so you see the money back in 30 days, but then there's another 15 days that you actually get the money from Apple and Google. People forget about this. And it's becoming a very big problem, because then you don't have money to pay salaries. Like, oh, wait a second, so you need to scale down. So all these, and then you scale down, and you never go back. So you need to,
Right.
It's always better to either stay at the same level, and because you are sending all the data to all the UA channels, so the algorithms learn on your data, and you stop sending that, and it's always a very big hurdle. I remember the one case where we were spending, let's say, 20,000 per day. We had to scale back to 1 or 2,000. We recovered to like 10K in 6 months. It took us, and we never hit that 20K.
Again, wow.
So yeah.
That
so it's very tough. It's very, very tough.
that kind of also points to the idea, maybe something like you mentioned, Red Ocean. You're going to match 3, or you're going into 4X or something like that, and there's a lot of games in those spaces that are doing a lot of different things to try to attract attention. There's the space you think you're going into is not static. It will change. And I know I know, like, there's the optimist in everybody that's like, it'll grow, don't worry, but actually it's more likely to shrink, because where there is success, people go. Like, that's where people are going to go in dev. What is there anything you see as, I'm not going to say full blue ocean, because that just means it hasn't been discovered yet, so you wouldn't be able to describe it, but is there anything you see where it's like, hey, this is relatively blue ocean right now?
Yeah, I don't think that is, but I know what people think is a relative blue ocean, which is solitaire games. Because now the Candy Crush Solitaire came out. There is the Solitaire Grand Harvest, which is the top game forever, and it's for a reason. It's you can compare that to Coin Master and that part of the social casino, because everybody's like, oh my god, like, there's only one game, I can get that piece of the pie. You can't, unless you're Monopoly Go. And we thought the games is very similar. Now the Candy Crush launch, it looks really bad. Then there's 4 more games in the solitaire genre that are in soft launch, which are coming. And as you said, they thought there's only one game, so let's try to tackle this. In my opinion, and my prediction on this, is gonna be a bloodbath. Everybody's gonna fail very much, because it's really hard, it's expensive, and it's driven for so long by one game for a reason, and that game was killing it with revenues and everything, but it took them some years to actually grow where they are at the moment. So yeah, it's not static. It's not static.
Yeah. Well, and I think you also, like, there's the possibility of you being able to fast follow and take a chunk, but you also have to realize that the incumbent has such an advantage. All right, I think then we'll call it good. Anything you want to plug? Anything you want to send people towards as we wrap up?
Well, I could plug it's very UA heavy. It's a bit of fun though. It's my Brutally Honest newsletter, which I talk about the UA stuff, and then we have the 2.5 Gamers podcast, which is also like no bullshit, quite fun, but also talking about the UA game design and ad monetization, and we kind of review games on a weekly basis. We usually do 2 games a week. So go there on the YouTube side.
Perfect. Matej, thank you so much. I appreciate the time. This has been educational for me, so much appreciated.
Thank you very much for having me, Ben. It's very good. I love it.
All right. Cheers. Until next time.
Thank you.
I want to do a quick summary of what we just talked about. A lot of interesting stuff in this. It's a little bit out of where I usually go, but I really enjoyed this conversation. And I think there's a lot of insight to it, especially as someone coming from the PC console space. So I'm just going to run through things that came to mind for me. And yeah, let me know what your takeaways are. First, The games industry is an industry that has gotten harder and will continue to get harder for probably as long as it exists. This is not a bug or some temporary downturn. It's just what is. It's the nature of the entertainment industry, perhaps, but it's something to get used to. Second, simply showing players gameplay no longer creates the hype it used to when it comes to getting attention. The space of running ads and getting players interested is more complex and becoming even more so over time. The complexity of the ad space has also led to a proliferation of fake ads or morally questionable ads that are likely to remain because they make money for everybody involved. Third, the bar for getting attention keeps going up. This is pretty similar to the previous one, but gone are the days when a game could stand on its own merits. Now it must either get insanely lucky, something you should not rely upon, or have something else going for it, like a famous studio, some sort of strong marketing push, an established IP, etc. Fourth, don't start with UA. Spending money before you know you are sending people towards a valuable product could be a huge waste. Solve the way players move through your own game before you try to funnel more people into it. Great UA won't save a terrible game. Fifth, genre and platform play a huge role in what your targets should be when it comes to important metrics. Know the space you are operating in and don't assume generic numbers or just copy from another game to yours. Sixth, the quality of your data matters more than you think. You use it to inform decisions. If you have crappy data, you're more likely to make bad decisions without realizing it. And you have crappy data more than you realize. So keep an eye on that. Seventh, good UA requires a lot of trying things out and seeing what happens. In this way, it's similar to game dev. For UA, this includes validating that bad ads are bad sometimes without overspending, and playing with different channels and creatives. Overinvestment in any one channel or creative will get you in trouble. You have to be willing to throw things out and see what happens. Eighth, even if it's not your area of expertise, take a stab at running a campaign. Understanding the mechanics of it and going through the motions will give you a greater appreciation for how difficult it is to get players into your game. Ninth, recognize that UA is no longer a mobile thing. Really seriously, folks. Everyone needs to start understanding how UA works. The world is changing. This isn't just some little part of the marketing budget or spend. Yes, mobile has been in this space for a long time. That's because mobile has been dealing with a red ocean for a long time. In PC and console, we're catching up fast. We need to take seriously what it looks like to bring people to our products in order for them to succeed. All right. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Thanks for listening.